The British invasion of India is a tale of trade, ambition, and cultural collision. It starts with the allure of the East, a land of fabled riches and exotic spices. For centuries, Europeans were captivated by tales of India's wealth. England, eager for lucrative trade, set its sights on India. The stage was set for a dramatic encounter altering both nations. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth I granted a royal charter to a group of London merchants forming the East India Company. This marked the beginning of a new era in Anglo-Indian relations. Tasked with securing trade routes, the company soon realized the potential of the Indian market. Initially, their presence was limited to coastal trading posts. They came bearing silk and silver, seeking to win over rulers through commerce. The Mughal Empire viewed these traders with curiosity and indifference. They were a minor presence in the Mughal court. However, the seeds of British ambition had been sown. The company steadily expanded its influence. What began as commerce transformed into something formidable. The company's ambition grew beyond trade. They sought control of the very source. The East India Company, initially humble in its aspirations, gradually began to exert its influence beyond the confines of its trading posts. The Mughal Empire, though still a force to be reckoned with, showed signs of internal weakness. The once mighty empire, under the reign of emperors, more interested in courtly pleasures than matters of state, began to fragment. This power vacuum created an opportunity for the ambitious company. They began to secure not just trading privileges, but also administrative rights, slowly morphing from merchants to de facto rulers. Local rulers, sensing the shifting tides of power, often found themselves caught in a web of alliances and rivalries with the company. They were enticed by promises of support and protection. Unaware of the price that came with such alliances, the company, with its growing wealth and military prowess, became adept at exploiting these divisions, playing one ruler against another to further its own interests. This strategy, though seemingly subtle, proved to be remarkably effective. The company, under the guise of trade and diplomacy, was steadily laying the groundwork for its future dominion. The Mughal Empire, once a beacon of power and prosperity, began to crumble from within. Internal strife, coupled with external pressures, weakened the empire's foundations. Succession disputes, a recurring theme in Mughal history, led to bloody conflicts that drained the empire's resources and sapped its strength. The emperors, increasingly isolated in their opulent courts, seemed oblivious to the growing discontent among the populace and the ambitions of those who sought to usurp their power. Regional powers, sensing the Mughal Empire's vulnerability, began to assert their independence. The Marathas, a formidable force from the Deccan Plateau, emerged as a major challenge to Mughal authority. They engaged in a series of wars with the Mughals, further weakening the empire and paving the way for the rise of new power centers in India. The once unified subcontinent was fragmenting into a patchwork of competing states, each vying for supremacy. This fragmentation played directly into the hands of the East India Company, allowing them to exploit these divisions to their advantage. Section 3, The Seeds of Discord, Early Conflicts and Alliances. The East India Company began asserting its military might, intervening in local disputes. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 marked a turning point. Robert Clive's victory established the company as a dominant force in Bengal. This emboldened the company to expand its control over India. They forged alliances, using force to coerce submission. Resistors faced swift retribution. The company's ruthless tactics were effective. They maneuvered like chess players, eliminating opponents. Section 4. A firm grip, the rise of British military might. The East India Company, having tasted victory and grown accustomed to wielding power, embarked on a path of aggressive expansion. Their armies, now larger and better equipped, marched across the subcontinent, subduing kingdoms and consolidating their control. The company's military successes were due in part to their superior firepower and organization, but also to their shrewd use of local knowledge and alliances. They recruited sepoys, Indian soldiers trained and led by British officers, into their ranks, effectively using Indian manpower to further their own imperial ambitions. The doctrine of lapse, a policy devised by Lord Dalhousie, the Governor-General of India, further solidified British control. This cunning doctrine stated that any Indian princely state under the company's protection would be annexed if the ruler died without a male heir. The British, using this policy as a pretext, annexed numerous states, further expanding their dominion and fueling resentment among the Indian populace. The company, once a humble group of traders, had transformed into a formidable imperial power, ruling over a vast swathe of the Indian subcontinent. Section 1. The Empire forged by fire and policy consolidating British rule. The East India Company's grip on India tightened, not merely through military victories, but also through shrewd political manoeuvring and calculated policies. The company, now a force to be reckoned with, began to consolidate its dominion over the subcontinent. They established administrative systems, courts of law, and revenue collection mechanisms, effectively replacing the existing power structures with their own. The once fragmented India, a tapestry of independent states, was being stitched together under a single foreign banner. The company's rule was not without its challenges. Resistance simmered beneath the surface, fueled by resentment towards foreign rule and the erosion of traditional power structures. Local chieftains, stripped of their authority, watched with growing unease as their lands and livelihoods came under the company's control. The seeds of rebellion were sown, waiting for the right moment to sprout. The company, aware of the simmering discontent, responded with a mix of conciliation and coercion, offering rewards to those who pledged loyalty and swift retribution to those who dared to defy. Section 2. Beyond the battlefield, the doctrine of lapse and administrative control. The doctrine of lapse, a seemingly innocuous policy, proved to be a potent weapon in the company's arsenal. This doctrine, conceived by Lord Dalhousie, the Governor-General of India, stipulated that any Indian state under the company's protection would be annexed if the ruler died without a male heir. The policy, ostensibly aimed at ensuring stability and good governance, was in reality a thinly veiled land grab. Numerous princely states, some with long and illustrious histories, were swallowed up by the burgeoning British Raj. The annexation of these states, often carried out under dubious pretexts, sent shockwaves through the Indian aristocracy. It served as a stark reminder that even those who cooperated with the company were not immune to its insatiable appetite for land and power. The doctrine of lapse, while effective in expanding the company's dominion, also sowed the seeds of deep resentment and distrust, contributing to the growing unrest that would eventually erupt in the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. Section 3. The shadow of the gallows, uprisings and repression. The East India Company's rule was far from unchallenged. Uprisings, both large and small, erupted across the subcontinent, a testament to the simmering anger against British rule. These revolts, often led by local chieftains or dispossessed rulers, were a desperate attempt to reclaim lost power and prestige. They were fueled by a potent mix of religious fervour, nationalist sentiment, and economic grievances. The company, accustomed to crushing opposition, responded to these uprisings with brutal efficiency. Their superior firepower and military organization, coupled with a ruthless determination to crush dissent, proved too much for the poorly armed and often divided rebels. The gallows became a grim symbol of British power, a stark reminder of the price of defiance. These uprisings, though ultimately unsuccessful, exposed the fragility of British rule and the deep well of resentment that lay beneath the surface. Section 4. The Jewel in the Crown, India under the British Raj. By the mid-19th century, the East India Company had transformed from a humble trading company into a formidable imperial power. India, with its vast resources, strategic importance, and teeming population, became the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. The company's rule, once confined to coastal enclaves, now stretched across vast swathes of the subcontinent, from the snow-capped Himalayas in the north to the tropical shores of Cape Comorin in the south. The British, now firmly in control, embarked on a program of administrative reforms, economic exploitation, and social engineering. They introduced new legal systems, codified laws, and established educational institutions, all aimed at consolidating their hold on India and shaping it in their own image. The impacts of British rule on India were profound and multifaceted, leaving an indelible mark on the subcontinent's social, economic, and political landscape. The British invasion of India did more than redraw political boundaries. It triggered a seismic shift in the very fabric of Indian society. The ancient caste system, already deeply ingrained, was further rigidified under British rule. The British, seeking to maintain order and control, often favoured certain castes over others, exacerbating existing social divisions. This policy of divide and rule, while effective in maintaining British hegemony, had a corrosive effect on Indian society, sowing seeds of discord that would linger for generations. Traditional family structures, the bedrock of Indian society, were also strained under the weight of British rule. The introduction of new laws and property rights, while ostensibly aimed at modernization, often undermined traditional systems of inheritance and land ownership. This led to the displacement of farmers, the concentration of land in the hands of a few, and a growing sense of economic insecurity among the rural populace. The British, in their pursuit of profit and order, inadvertently unleashed forces that would have far-reaching consequences for Indian society. The East India Company, from its inception, had been driven by a relentless pursuit of profit. Under British rule, India was transformed into a vast plantation, its resources ruthlessly exploited to fuel the engines of the British Empire. Raw materials such as cotton, indigo and tea flowed out of India at an astonishing rate, destined for factories in Britain and markets across the globe. India, once renowned for its exquisite textiles, became a supplier of raw cotton to British mills, its own textile industry decimated by British policies. This systematic siphoning of resources, known as the drain of wealth, had a devastating impact on the Indian economy. Local industries collapsed, unable to compete with British imports, leading to widespread unemployment and economic hardship. The wealth generated from India's resources enriched British coffers, while India itself remained mired in poverty. This economic exploitation, coupled with the social and political subjugation of the Indian people, fueled a growing sense of resentment and nationalism. The British invasion of India was not just a military and economic conquest, it was also a cultural clash of epic proportions. The British, convinced of their own cultural superiority, embarked on a mission to civilize India, introducing Western education, legal systems, and social customs. English became the language of administration and higher education, creating a new class of Indians fluent in the language of their rulers, yet often alienated from their own cultural roots. This policy of Westernization, while having a profound impact on Indian society, also had unintended consequences. Exposure to Western ideas of liberty, equality, and nationalism planted the seeds of dissent. Indian intellectuals, educated in British schools, began to question the legitimacy of British rule, drawing inspiration from Enlightenment thinkers and the ideals of the American and French revolutions. The very tools that the British had used to consolidate their rule, education, law, and administration were now being turned against them. Section 4. The Seeds of Dissent, Resistance, Rebellion, and the Rise of Indian Nationalism. Resistance to British rule, simmering beneath the surface for decades, began to coalesce into organized movements. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, sparked by the controversial Enfield rifle cartridges greased with animal fat, spread like wildfire across northern India. Sepoys, Indian soldiers in the employ of the British, rose up in rebellion, joined by local rulers and peasants, united in their opposition to British rule. The mutiny, though brutally suppressed by the British, proved to be a turning point in Anglo-Indian relations. It shattered the myth of British invincibility and ignited the flames of Indian nationalism. The mutiny, though ultimately unsuccessful in dislodging the British, marked the beginning of a long and arduous struggle for independence. It gave birth to a new generation of Indian leaders, determined to free their nation from the shackles of colonialism. Section 5. A legacy etched in time, the enduring impacts of British rule. The British Raj, a chapter in India's history spanning over 2 centuries, finally came to an end in 1947 with India's hard-won independence. The legacy of British rule, however, continues to shape India today. The political systems, legal framework, and administrative structures put in place by the British continue to influence the functioning of the Indian state. The English language, once a tool of colonial administration, remains a vital link language in a nation of diverse tongues. The economic disparities, sown during the era of colonial exploitation, continue to cast a long shadow. The scars of colonialism run deep, etched in the collective memory of a nation that endured centuries of foreign domination. Yet from the ashes of colonialism, a new India emerged, a vibrant democracy grappling with the complexities of its past while striving to forge a brighter future. Section 1. The Unravelling of an Empire, India's Path to Independence. The British Raj, despite its apparent invincibility, carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. The very act of colonizing India, of imposing foreign rule upon a people with a rich and ancient civilization, had ignited the flames of nationalism. The Indian independence movement, gaining momentum throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, drew strength from the sacrifices of countless freedom fighters, from the fiery speeches of charismatic leaders, and from the shared dream of a free India. Mahatma Gandhi, a lawyer by training, emerged as the leading figure of this movement, his philosophy of non-violent resistance capturing the imagination of millions. Gandhi, with his simple message of truth, justice, and self-reliance, galvanized the Indian masses, transforming the fight for independence into a mass movement. The British, facing mounting pressure both within India and on the international stage, were forced to concede. The sun finally set on the British Empire in 1947, as India, partitioned into 2 independent nations, India and Pakistan, embarked on a new chapter in its long and storied history. Section 2. The Ghosts of Empire, Echoes of the Raj in Modern India. The British Raj's legacy is complex, blending progress and exploitation. Today's India, a vibrant democracy, still bears colonial imprints, Political systems, legal frameworks and administrative structures are British legacies. English remains a vital link language, a testament to cultural exchange. Economic disparities from colonial exploitation cast a long shadow. The drain of wealth left its mark, contributing to poverty and underdevelopment. The ghosts of empire linger in monuments, social structures and political discourse. Section 3. Beyond the textbook, the enduring relevance of understanding the Raj. The story of the British invasion of India is not a mere historical footnote. It is a story with profound relevance for the world today. It is a story about the complexities of colonialism, the interplay of power and resistance, and the enduring legacies of empire. Understanding the British Raj is not just about delving into the past, it is about engaging with the forces that have shaped the present and continue to influence the future. The lessons of the Raj resonate far beyond the borders of India. They offer insights into the dynamics of globalization, the challenges of cultural exchange, and the enduring legacies of colonialism that continue to shape the world today. The British invasion of India, far from being a distant historical event, serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the human cost of empire and the importance of understanding the past to navigate the complexities of the present.